Okay, so now we launch into the latter half of Shemot. The latter half of Shemot, 4 out of the 5 parshiot. The topic is
building the
Mishkan. Thank you. Right, Truma Tzaveh V'Yaakov Kudei. Now I mentioned this briefly Thursday night, but as we enter it, this is important to do. There's a fundamental machlokas rishonim about whether this is in fact the proper order of the parshiot. Rashi thinks it is not. Right? Rashi thinks that the entire notion of a Mishkan was b'diavad. We shouldn't have had a Mishkan. The Mishkan only became necessary after the Egel, and therefore he thinks that all these parshiot are out of order. Really, they happen after the Egel.
What should there be instead of Mishkan?
What?
What should there be instead of Mishkan?
So that's the interesting question. So the way this is often presented is that people say this is machlokas between Rashi and the Ramban. As we'll see in a moment, I'm going to focus on the Ramban, right? The Ramban thinks that no, Mishkan was l'chatchila, and Rashi thinks it was b'diavad, and it was only part of kapara for the Egel. Now the way people often present it is, and therefore according to Rashi, ideally there should not have been anything. Right, that's what they say.
I always found it strange.
Now, Rabbi Jonanthan points out that is literally impossible in Torah. If you paid attention last week in Parshas Mishpatim, what laws do we find in Mishpatim that would make that impossible?
Sacrificial laws.
Yeah, sacrificial laws of going to the Mikdash, Shalosh Regalim, and the like. And the simplest shot is simply that according to Rashi, there was no need for a Mishkan, but there was going to be a Mikdash. Remember. And we've come back to this point several times already. It wasn't supposed to take that long to get to Eretz Yisrael. Right. Therefore, in an ideal world, one could imagine that Rashi would say, look, so there wouldn't be a Mishkan. They would just build a Beis HaMikdash, right? If they were on a high enough spiritual level, they didn't need the Mishkan. So whatever, you go the 2 months it takes to get to Eretz Yisrael, and then you do whatever you do. I don't know what Rashi would have thought. The Mishkan would have built, the Mikdash would have been built at the beginning, or the Jews could have survived, 7, 14 years, whatever, until the Mikdash was built, or whatever. Right? Meaning it's almost impossible to read Tanakh and not believe that Rashi would admit that some notion of a sanctuary was necessary. So I tend to agree with the Rabbi Jonanthan that at best what you can say about Rashi is that maybe he thought the notion of a temporary Mishkan until Mikdash was b'diavad, but in an ideal world they would have had Mikdash pretty quickly. How quickly, I don't know. But the Mishkan, he thinks, was an afterthought.
Not after the Egel also?
No. Mishpatim is not after the Egel. Truma, according to Rashi, is, but not Mishpatim. Now, according to... yes, Max. According to the Ramban, however, it's not true. The Mikdash is lechatchila. The Parshiot are Keseder. Ramban in general tries to avoid there being a lack of order, right, chronological order rather, in the Torah. Not always, obviously. Everyone admits that sometimes the Torah is out of order. Sometimes the Torah tells you it's writing out of order, and there's nothing you can do about it. But barring cases where the Torah tells you, the Ramban avoids this. So then what was the Mishkan? And I mentioned this quickly. Zev gets here just for the main point. Right? What, according to the Ramban, therefore, is the point of the Mishkan?
Wouldn't it be the same point as
see yourself as the end.
No.
Oh, Har Sinai.
It's Har Sinai, thank you. Right?
Is that
and this is right, and I will read it to you. Right, meaning he thinks that this is the continuity of the Mikdash may eventually be, but the Mishkan was necessary to continue the Sinai experience beyond Sinai. Right, that in a nutshell is the first Ramban on this parsha, which you should remember for the next 5 parshiot. Right, I will read it to you. Kasher diber Hashem Yisrael panim b'panim aseret hadibrot. When God spoke to the Jewish people face to face with the 10 Commandments. V'tzivaot hamadei Moshe k'tzat mitzvot. Shem kamo avot mitzvoteh shel Torah kasher enigu rabotenu magarim shebayim lehityahed. And he taught them the main categories of mitzvot, just like we do ad hayom with people who want to convert. V'Yisrael kiblu lehem lasot kol ma shetzavem al yado shel Moshe v'karani mambrit al kol zeh. And the Jews accepted the Torah and accepted to do everything that that Moshe said, and they made a covenant about this. Me'ata hinehem lo la'am v'hu lohem le'elohim. And the Ramban is always a beautiful writer. He just says, so now they are his nation and he is their God. Kasher hitnai mahem mitchila. That was the condition that was said. V'atam shamot tishmu b'kali ushmartem et briti v'yitem li sigula. Now if you listen to me, etc., and keep my covenant, you will be my chosen one, you will be my treasure. V'amar v'atem tiyu li mamlechet kohanim v'goy kadosh. And you will be my holy nation of priests. V'hineihem kedoshim u'ru'uyim sheyeh bahem mikdash la'ashrot shchinato b'neihem. So if you're holy and you have a covenant with God, then you deserve a mikdash where God's presence, whatever that means, will be imminent. So the first thing you get after Ma'amad Har Sinai, remember, Mishpatim is still at Har Sinai. Right? These are just the laws, right? These are the expansions we talked about yesterday, the last week of the Zirirng Dibro. The next sort of category of things that you get is the Mishkan. It's a place where God will be present, and Moshe will speak with God and command the Jewish people. He said, I'll prove it to you. What's the first part of the Mishkan that is described?
The
Aron.
Yeah.
Right, the Aron. Right, the point. That's the point. Right, the point is the Aron. So it starts. Right. So it starts you off. Al Kain. Hikdim ha'aron v'kaporet bekan ki hu mukdam b'ma'ala v'samach. By the way, one of the things that should have become obvious at this point over the year, but the modern literary approach that I often use to understand Tanakh, in many ways, is simply people channeling the Ramban, right? Meaning the Ramban, before literary theory was like invented in the world, was a literary theorist, right? You can see that, right? He talks big picture. He talks about what is happening in books. Right, so you start with those, and they come before the Aron and the Kaporet before the other Kalim, which are made for the other, right, for the Aron to create a space for it. And then he gives you the secret to the difference between Truma Tetzaveh and Vayakal Pekudei. Right, 1 second. Right, what's the difference? The Truma Tetzaveh is described by importance. Vayakal Pekudei is described by practical. Remember, right, that famous Rashi that Bitzalel switched the order of Moshe, right? What's he really getting at? So what's the point of the order? Truma Tetzaveh is God describing the purpose of the Mishkan. It's in conceptual order, right? Rather than practical order. Vayakal Pekudei is in practical order because Bitzalel is the architect and Moshe is the theoretician. So Moshe describes the purpose. It starts with the Aron. Vayakal Pekudei describes how you actually build a Mishkan. Well, you don't start with the Aron. V'seder Mishkan Hushia Kavod Asher Shachen Al Har Sinai Shachen Alav Binistar. Now he tells you the secret, and the point is that as God's presence manifests itself openly on Har Sinai, it now manifests itself in a hidden way in the Mishkan. Kan Moshe Amar Shama Yishkon Kvod Hashem Al Har Sinai Uktiv Hashem Ereinu Hashem Elokeinu Et Kvodo Ve'et Godlo V'chein Katuv Mishkan Kvod Hashem Alei Mishkan V'Yizkir Mishkan Shnei Pa'amim Kvod Hashem Alei Mishkan Keneged Et Kvodo Ve'et Godlo. And he said, the language even points to this, because God's Spirit manifests itself in the Mishkan twice, just like it manifests itself twice on Har Sinai. And therefore in the Mishkan, the glory of God that was at Har Sinai is always there. Moshe and when Moshe would come, he would speak to him as he did in Har Sinai. And now he goes through and he points out, how do I know this? Right? Because he said of the parallels. Right? There are literary parallels. God's presence appears twice on Har Sinai, it appears twice here. Right? Then you have Ishmael Kol Medaber Elav Me'al Kaporim Ben Shnei Akruvim. Right? Just like you had by Matan Torah, you have God's voice coming out from a specific place, you have God's voice coming out from the Mibein Shnei Akruvim. Right now he goes on for a while, and now as now this already. I won't read the rest inside. But one of the things that has been developed, not just by the Ramban here, by the Midrashim as well, and even more so by the modern commentaries, is that this Yesod for the Ramban, this was Lechatchila, that the Mishkan was meant to be a portable Har Sinai. Right, is evidenced by many things. Right, one, he points out some of the literary ones, but one of the things that appears, right, and I'll just throw them out quickly, I mentioned this already on Thursday, there are 3, right, levels, just like there are Har Sinai, right, there were the 3 divisions of who could get close, in the Mishkan and the Mikdash, there are those 3 levels, right, that you're separate. God's presence appears in a cloud, right, the climactic moment of Yom Kippur, when God's presence comes in its most imminent form, appears in the cloud of the Ktoret. And if you look carefully as you go through, you will see that there are many other parallels between the way Har Sinai is set up and the way the Mishkan is set up. What?
It's for you before you enter.
I mean, I'm saying there's a million in terms of how we practice, in terms of the physical structure, in terms of the language. Right? There's over and over. But the fundamental point is that unlike Rashi, who thought that the Mishkan was b'diavad, again, does that mean he thought there was no physical space for God in this world? No. Presumably it means they thought there would be eventually a mikdash, but it wasn't necessary to have a Mishkan consistently carrying with them the Sinai experience. The Ramban thought that no, the Mishkan was necessary to instantiate the experience into this world forever. And I will just point out that the last point, obviously, right? What is the Makkah Patish that indicates that this is so? Right, specifically, what lies at the middle of the Mishkan? What?
The Luchos.
Yeah, the Luchot HaBrit, meaning it's not just like theoretically it's parallel. It's the physical object that God takes, that God gives Moshe as the commemoration of the words he said at Har Sinai, or what lie at the heart of the Mishkan. Right? It's pretty explicit. That is meant to be the imagery, and that's something to keep in mind as you go through the next 5 parshiot.